Loretta Vane first noticed the woman from the window above the sink. The way you notice something that doesn't quite fit the landscape. Not wrong exactly, just out of place enough to make you look twice. The woman was walking up the road from the direction of Cimarron, which meant she had come a long way on foot with nothing but a canvas bag over one shoulder and the particular posture of someone who had stopped expecting things to be easy. She was young, maybe late 20s, maybe older, if the road had done to her what roads out here tended to do. Her dress was the color of mud that had dried and been walked through again. Her boots were good boots once, probably, but that time had passed. She was not hurrying. Out here in the New Mexico territory in 1882, a woman who had learned not to hurry had usually learned it the hard way. Loretta set down her coffee and watched. Behind her in the front room, her father-in-law August Vane sat at his desk, with the ranch accounts spread in front of him, doing the arithmetic of a man who already knows what the numbers say, and is hoping for the last time that he is wrong. He was 64 years old, and he had built the Rimrock from bare rock and dry grass into something real. 300 acres of mesa and canyon country below the Sangre de Cristos, 50 head of cattle, a small horse operation that had once paid well and now paid less. He had done it with his wife Nell until Nell died 4 years ago, and then he had done it with his son Preston until Preston married Loretta and moved them both out here. And then Preston had died of a burst appendix 18 months ago on a Tuesday in March, and now August did it with Loretta, who was 29 years old and stubborn in the particular way that grief makes some people stubborn. Not angry, not broken, just determined to not let the last thing her husband loved fall apart while she was still standing. They could not run the Rimrock alone. That was the stone at the bottom of every morning. "Someone on the road," Loretta said. August didn't look up. Rider? Walker. That made him look up. The woman reached the gate and stopped. She set her bag down. She looked at the house, and then at the barn, and then out toward the mesa where the cattle were just visible against the brown grass. And she looked the way a person looks when they are not admiring a thing but assessing it, taking stock before speaking. Then she picked up her bag and walked to the door. Loretta opened it before August could say not to. The woman was, up close, somewhere between 27 and 32, with dark hair pinned back imperfectly and gray eyes that were direct in the way that some people's eyes are direct when they have been through enough that pretending no longer seems worth the effort. There was a bruise along her jaw, fading but still visible, yellowing at the edges, 4 or 5 days old. She held her chin level. "Ma'am," she said, "I'm sorry to interrupt your morning. My name is Cecily Holt. I've been traveling from Springer." She paused. "I can see from your gate that your corral post is split at the base, the second one from the left. If that goes in a hard wind, it'll take the fence rail with it, and you'll lose whatever's in that pen. I can also see your water line from the house to the barn has a low sag in the middle that's going to pool and freeze when the cold comes, which means burst pipe by November." She met Loretta's eyes. "I know horses. I know cattle well enough. I know fence and water, and I can work a full day without being told twice. If you let me stay, I'll earn my keep. I'm not asking for wages. Only meals and a place to sleep." Loretta looked at her. "In exchange for what?" she said. "Nothing else." Cecily's voice was level. "I just need somewhere to be for a while." From inside, August Vane appeared at Loretta's shoulder. He was a large man still, broad through the chest, though the years had redistributed some of that, with white hair and the hands of someone who had done hard work since before Cecily was born. He looked at her the way he looked at horses he was considering, not unkindly but thoroughly. "Where are you from?" he said. "Originally Taos. I've been working ranches and way stations since I was 20. "Working or running?" A pause. She didn't look away from him. "Some of both, sir." "What happened to your face? A disagreement?" Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not in trouble that will follow me here, if that's what you're asking. The man who gave me that has no interest in finding me." Something moved in August's expression. Not quite belief, not quite its opposite, more like the acknowledgement that some things can't be verified and have to be weighed against what else a person shows you. He looked at Loretta. Loretta looked at him. 18 months of running a ranch together had made this a language without words. She saw him begin to shake his head. They'd had hired hands before. One had left owing them 3 weeks of food. One had been decent but drank. One had stayed 4 months and departed in November with a saddle and the good bridle and 2 of August's better winter shirts. The word no was forming in August's expression as naturally as it had formed before, as naturally as caution forms in people who have been given reasons for it. And then, from somewhere across the mesa, carried on the dry October air, came a sound. It was not a dramatic sound. It was, in fact, the kind of sound that would mean nothing to anyone who didn't know horses. A high intermittent scream, sharp and repeating, the sound a horse makes when it is down and cannot get up, and is beginning to understand that fact. Cecily turned before either of them spoke. "That's a horse in the east pasture, already setting her bag against the porch post. It's either cast or it's colic. If it's cast, I can get it up. If it's colic, it depends how long it's been down." She looked back at Loretta. "Which horse, the gray?" Loretta said. "Dutch." Something changed in Cecily's face, not panic, just acceleration. "He's a big horse. If he's been rolling, he may have twisted. I need rope and I need someone with me." She was already moving toward the barn. "Now, please." Loretta went. She did not think about it. She simply went, grabbing the rope from the barn door peg, and following this woman's, she had known for approximately 2 minutes, across the hard ground toward the east pasture, because the alternative was losing Dutch. And Dutch was the best horse on the rimrock, and also, Loretta understood without fully articulating it. Because the woman was moving like someone who knew exactly what they were doing, and sometimes that is enough. Dutch was cast, wedged against the pasture fence, unable to roll back to standing, legs working without purchase in the dry dirt. He had been there long enough to work himself into a sweat and passed it, trembling in the particular way that large animals tremble when exhaustion meets fear. Cecily went to his head first, not to his legs, not to the fence. His head. She put one hand on his neck and spoke to him in a voice so low that Loretta, 10 feet away, couldn't make out the words, only the tone, which was the tone of absolute certainty. The way you speak to something frightened when you need it to believe that you are not frightened, even if you have to make that true from the inside out as you're saying it. The horse's breathing slowed, measurably. Loretta watched it happen. Then Cecily talked Loretta through the repositioning, where to place the rope, how to brace, when to pull, and between the two of them, over the course of about 8 minutes that felt considerably longer, Dutch came up. He stood with shaking legs, blowing hard, and Cecily kept her hand on his neck and kept talking to him while he found himself again. When it was done, Loretta realized she was the one breathing hard. Cecily checked Dutch's legs, his belly, his hooves, methodical, unhurried now that the urgency was past. "He's all right," she said, "sore. Keep him in the near pen tonight and check him at midnight. He won't want to roll again for a while." She patted the horse's neck once without ceremony. "He'll be fine." They walked back to the house in the low afternoon light. August Vane was standing on the porch. He had watched from the fence rail, which Loretta had not noticed at the time but understood now. He looked at Dutch, who was walking slowly but steadily toward the near pen. He looked at Cecily. "The room above the tack shed," he said. "Small. Gets cold. There's a cot and 2 blankets. Cecily nodded. "That's more than I had last night." "Supper's at 6, Loretta said. "We don't hold it." "Yes, ma'am." Loretta watched her walk toward the tack shed, noting the split corral post as she passed, laying one hand on it to test it, already knowing what needed doing. She turned and went inside. She heard August behind her on the porch step. Neither of them said anything for a moment. "I know," Loretta finally said. "I didn't speak. You didn't need to." In the weeks that followed, Cecily Holt proved useful in the way that certain people are useful, not because they announce themselves, but because things simply get better in the places they've been. The split corral post was replaced inside 2 days, mortared at the base this time, set to last. The water line from the house to the barn was repitched, the low section packed with gravel drainage, the kind of fix that addresses the cause rather than the symptom. She found a loose shoe on the bay mare that would have gone to lameness in another week and reset it herself with the calm efficiency of someone for whom this is unremarkable. She was good with the horses. August saw it first and said nothing, which was how August expressed most of his convictions. He simply began including her in conversations about the horse operation without making a formal decision to do so, asking her read on the roan's hitch, her opinion on the feed ratio for the 2-year-olds, and then listening to the answers with the attention he gave to things he thought worth listening to. Loretta watched all of this and kept her own counsel, because there was something about Cecily Holt that she couldn't entirely settle. It wasn't suspicion exactly. The woman was honest. Loretta had a sense for dishonesty honed by years of being underestimated by people who then tried to take advantage of it, and Cecily had none of that quality. She worked without being observed. She didn't take things. She treated August with a quiet, uncalculated respect, and treated Loretta with a careful equality that felt earned rather than performed. It was the bruise, and what it implied. And the way Cecily never spoke about Springer, the way she stepped around certain questions, the way you step around ice you're not sure will hold. One evening in November, when the first real cold had come down off the mountains, and they were sitting after supper with the wood stove going and the wind doing its business against the shutters, Loretta set down her mending and said, "Cecily, what happened in Springer?" August looked up from his paper. Cecily was quiet for a long moment, looking at her hands on the table. "I had a position," she said at last, "housekeeper for a family named Driscoll. The husband ran a freight operation. The wife was ill, had been for some time." She paused. "He was not a good man, not to his wife, not to his workers, not eventually to me either." Her jaw was still for a moment. "I left. He was angry about it. The bruise was his argument for why I should stay." She looked up. "I didn't find it convincing." The stove ticked in the quiet. "Did he come after you?" Loretta asked. "He sent 2 men to the road south of Cimarron." She said it the way you say a fact. "I convinced them it wasn't worth their time." August folded his paper slowly. He looked at her over the top of his glasses. How? For the first time since she had arrived, something that might have been the beginning of a smile crossed Cecily's face. "I had a conversation with them," she said. "I'm persuasive when I need to be." August looked at Loretta. Loretta looked at August. Something shifted in both of them. Cecily looked at the stove. "I didn't know where I was going when I left. I just walked north. And then I saw your gate and the split post and I thought—" She stopped. "I thought maybe I could be useful to someone. For a while." "Only for a while?" Loretta said. Cecily looked at her. She didn't answer right away. "I've learned not to assume," she said finally. Loretta picked up her mending. "That's a habit worth reconsidering," she said. "Sometimes. This is the kind of thing that gets said between 2 women at a table in a cold room at the end of a long day and means more than it appears to. The man's name was Royce Driscoll, and he appeared on a Thursday morning in December with 2 riders and the expression of someone who has decided that a thing belongs to him. It was not entirely about Cecily, though Cecily was part of it. Driscoll ran freight from Cimarron east across the territory and had been acquiring land along his routes for 3 years, with the patient opportunism of someone who understands that attrition is as effective as confrontation. The Rimrock sat on a corridor he wanted. He had made August an offer in September, before Cecily arrived, which August had declined. He had sent a letter in October repeating the offer and noting, with what he probably imagined was subtlety, that the coming winter would be hard on a ranch running short-handed, and then he had found out that the woman who had walked out of his house in Springer was living on the Rimrock, and something in his calculation had simplified. Loretta saw them from the kitchen window. 3 horses at the gate. She knew the man in front by description. The good coat, the full beard going gray, the posture of a man who has not been told no often enough to be comfortable with it. She went to the barn. Cecily was already awake. already dressed, standing at the barn door with a pitchfork handle in one hand and the same level expression she brought to everything. The two older horses in the near stalls were alert, ears forward. Cecily was watching the gate with the calm, unhurried attention of someone who has been waiting for this, not with dread, but with the particular readiness of a person who has already decided what they will do. "You know him," Loretta said. "I expected him eventually." Cecily set the pitchfork handle against the wall. "Is August going out there?" "He's loading the rifle. Tell him to wait." Loretta looked at her. "Please," Cecily said. "Tell him to wait and watch from the window. This goes better if it's one person, not three. There are moments when you make a decision about someone, not because of what they've told you, but because of how they stand in a doorway at 6 in the morning with their chin level and nothing to prove to anyone." Loretta looked at Cecily for 2 seconds. Then she turned and went back to the house and told August to wait. He did not like it, but he waited. Cecily walked to the gate alone, not quickly, not slowly. She walked the way she did everything, at the pace of someone who has settled the question internally before they've arrived at it externally. She stopped at the fence. Driscoll looked down at her from the saddle. Whatever he'd expected, it was not this. Not her standing there at a gate with the morning sun behind her and the same unimpressed expression she'd probably worn the day she walked out of his house. "Cecily," he said her name like a claim. "Mr. Driscoll, you've caused me considerable inconvenience. I imagine so." She looked at him steadily. "I'll cause you more if you don't turn around." The two riders shifted. One of them was the man from the Cimarron Road. She recognized the hat. He recognized her too. His horse took a small step sideways and he led it. "I have business with August Vane," Driscoll said. "Not with you. Mr. Vane isn't available. He's asked me to speak for the Rimrock. Since when does he let a drifting housemaid speak for his ranch? Since she became indispensable." Cecily let that settle for a moment. "The Rimrock is not for sale, Mr. Driscoll. Mr. Vane has made that clear twice. I'm making it clear a third time on his behalf, which means you've now heard it from both of us, and a judge in Cimarron would find that adequate notice." Driscoll's expression tightened. "You don't have any. The man in the window behind me," Cecily said, without turning around, "has owned this land for 21 years and has a rifle that he has been hoping for an occasion to use in your direction for approximately 4 months. I have been asking him to be patient." She looked at Driscoll. "I'm asking you to make it easy for me to keep asking him." Silence. The wind came off the Sangre de Cristos, cold and clean, and moved through the dry grass at the gatepost. Driscoll looked at the window. August Vane was there, backlit with the rifle in the crook of his arm and 21 years of possession on his face. He looked at the two riders. The Cimarron man was looking at the ground. "I'll be back," Driscoll said. "Come with a lawyer," Cecily said. "Or don't come at all. If it's a lawyer, ours is in Cimarron. His name is Birch. He is expecting correspondence on this matter." She had spoken to no lawyer. She had no idea if there was a man named Birch in Cimarron. There was. August confirmed it that evening. Birch had in fact been the one to record the original land title. Neither of them said anything for a moment after August confirmed this. Then Loretta stood up and poured 3 glasses of the good brandy, the bottle that lived on the high shelf and came down only for things that warranted it, and set one in front of each of them, and one in front of herself, which was the order of priority at the Rimrock table. August looked at his glass. He looked at Cecily. "You bluffed him," he said. "Partially," she said. The rifle was real. August's mouth did something it hadn't done in quite some time. "I should write to Birch," he said. "Monday, I'd recommend it." He turned his glass in his hands. "You said our lawyer." Cecily looked at the table. "I noticed," said. He was quiet for a moment. "Loretta." Loretta looked at him. "I've been thinking," he said, "since the business with Dutch, about whether there's a practical arrangement we ought to discuss." He said it the way he said most things, measured, without drama, as if the thought had arrived fully formed rather than having lived in him since approximately the morning Cecily re-pitched the waterline. The horse operation has more in it than 2 of us can properly develop. and I'm 64 years old. He looked at Cecily. I'd like to offer you a stake, he said. Not wages. A stake. A fifth of the horse operation to start, with agreement to renegotiate at spring after we've seen what the season brings. He set his glass down. You'd have say in decisions, and you'd have this as an address, not a temporary arrangement. The room was quiet. Cecily looked at August. Then she looked at Loretta. Loretta met her eyes, nodded once small. Why? Cecily said. She said it simply, not as resistance, just as a real question. August was quiet for a moment. Because you came to a gate and told me the corral post was split, he said. And you were right, and because you went to Dutch's head first. He paused. Preston would have gone to his head first. A silence. I didn't know that, Cecily said. No. August finished his brandy. You just knew it was right. He looked at her steadily. This land needs people who know things like that without being told. Cecily's eyes were wet. She didn't look away. She didn't try to fix it or explain it away. She just let it be there, the way a person who has not been offered something real in a long time lets it be there when it finally arrives. I'll earn it, she said. I know, Loretta said. That's why we're asking. There's a particular kind of woman the West made, if you were watching for it. Not the kind the dime novels wrote about, not desperate or ornamental. The kind that came up a road with Risoled boots and a bruise on her jaw and noticed the corral post was split before she introduced herself, because the post was a problem, and problems were things she solved. You either saw that kind of woman or you didn't. August and Loretta saw her. Driscoll sent his lawyer in January. Cecily was at the fence when the man arrived and had the Rimrock's own legal correspondence in her hand. 3 weeks of evening work at the kitchen table, by lamplight after supper, letters that Loretta had helped draft and August had signed and sent to Birch in Cimarron. The lawyer from Driscoll looked at the documentation, looked at the 2 women standing at the gate, and rode back to Cimarron without getting off his horse. Driscoll did not come back. The winter was hard. It was hard the way winters in that country are hard, not dramatic, just relentless, the cold arriving in layers and settling in and making every morning a negotiation between what needed to be done and what the cold intended to allow. Cecily worked through it without remark. August watched this and felt something ease in him that had been tight for 4 years. By February, the horse operation had 3 new contracts, 2 from ranches to the south who'd heard through the particular telegraph of the territory that the Rimrock had a woman with a gift for difficult horses, and 1 from a freighter in Mora who wanted 6 animals trained to harness work. Cecily handled the training. Loretta handled the contracts. August handled the part of the operation that August had always handled, and found that his mornings were slightly less heavy than they had been. On a warm evening in March, when the snow was going off the high peaks in the long light and the first grass was showing on the south mesa, Loretta found Cecily sitting on the top rail of the near corral, watching the horses move in the last of the afternoon. She climbed up beside her. Her knees were 29 years old and registered no complaint. You wrote to someone, Loretta said. Not a question. She'd seen the envelope on the table that morning, a woman's name in Taos. My sister, Cecily said. We haven't spoken in 3 years. She looked at the horses. I didn't know what to say to her for a long time. And now I have an address, she said it quietly. It's easier to write when you have an address. Loretta looked at the corral fence, solid, every rail set right, the new posts she and Cecily had set in October still true. She looked at the water line running clean and straight from the house to the barn. No sag, no pooling, good through freeze and thaw. She looked at the horses moving in the easy late light. When Preston and I came here, she said, I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. I'd never been this far from anything I knew. She paused. I cried the first night. Didn't tell August. Didn't tell Preston even. She watched the horses. But I woke up the next morning and the light was doing something I'd never seen light do before. Coming off the mesa this particular way it has here, and I thought, all right, I can learn this place. Cecily was quiet. It takes time, Loretta said. Deciding somewhere is yours. I know, but you've already started. Loretta glanced at her. You started with the corral post. Below them, the horses moved through the cooling air with the unhurried ease of animals that know they are home, and the San Cristos held the last of the light on their high places. And somewhere in the house, August Vane was probably reading his paper and listening without meaning to, for the sound of the rimrock doing what it had always done, keeping on. Cecily Holt had walked up a road with nothing but a canvas bag and eyes that missed nothing. She had not planned to stay. She had not planned anything, in the way that people stop planning when the plans keep not working out. But she had noticed the corral post. And sometimes that is where it begins. Not with a destination, but with a problem you can fix, and the quiet, unexpected discovery that fixing it was the first thing in a long time that felt like being where you belong.